learning from each other and getting to know us, getting to interact. Today is the final phase of this, final day of this phase, the online training. But it's not the end of learning. It's, for me, the beginning of learning. Where we are encouraged to go research some more on our own. We're living in a very exciting time where there's so much information, we don't know what to do with it all. The internet has opened us up to a lot of resources. I encourage us to go beyond what these slides present, to go beyond what's discussed in this class, and to go research for ourselves and know more and find out what and how people are doing things out there that may be better, and what we're doing here that are better and we can export to people out there, teach them. So life is all about learning. Importantly, it's about curiosity. If you're curious, you can learn a lot. If you're someone like me who wants to keep improving himself always, then there's so much information out there for you every day to learn. So I congratulate us as we continue this training. Congratulate us as we continue to learn. But I encourage us to not limit ourselves to these materials. It's a very broad topic. It's not something you can do in 3 days. People go to the university to study this course for 3, 4 years. It's absolutely no way we can exhaust the entire topic. This is a crash course, so we'll continue to take it up from there. And like I've always mentioned, my lines are always open. The WhatsApp group is there. If you're in the field and you encounter any challenges or you're curious, you want to learn more, I encourage us to take advantage of such openings. We have a very detailed website. We equally have very detailed social media activities. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and importantly, YouTube. I'd like us to know that these trainings are recorded from the Module 1, Module 2, and Module 3. And for those of us going through challenges of internet network, please feel free. We share the social media handles as well as the YouTube, importantly, the YouTube handle to us. These trainings will be available on YouTube for you to download onto your phone or for you to access from anywhere at any time. And you can rewatch them, you can fast forward them, you can go back and listen to these things we said, or you could use them as resources you can consult. So I encourage us to take advantage of such tools. So the training doesn't end here. The informations are recorded and uploaded to YouTube. You can access them. Also importantly, we have blog articles which are designed to train, which are designed to inform, which are designed to equip on our website. You're encouraged to look out for them. We share those links to the WhatsApp group for people who are interested to look at them and take advantage of those resources. There are resource materials. We have very detailed resource materials on our website, which are books, blog articles, and a number of manuals designed to train, designed to equip. And so I encourage us to take advantage of these materials. Some of them are completely free. If you can't, so you don't really have any excuse to say, oh, we didn't have all the materials we wanted. So before we commence the training today, I just want us to go back to the assignment I gave us yesterday, the activity assignment. Just to recall, I asked us to research as well as find out from our communities, from the farmers around us, or just to be curious, ask ourselves, why are the yields per hectare for maize and rice in Nigeria so low in comparison to other countries? I think you can feel free to unmute yourself if you've done some findings and share with us what the current yields per hectare for Nigeria is and what it is for other countries, and what we think we're doing right or wrong that is giving us these yields, these poor yields per hectare, and what you think we'll need to do right to help us overcome this. Please feel very free to share with us.
Good morning,
Anyone? Good morning.
sir. Based on my findings, the reason why Nigeria are having good in terms of maize and rice.
Please
I
speak into your microphone. You're sounding really low.
Yes, sir. And I can say, can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yes, sir. So, based on my findings, I believe one of the reasons we are having in terms of low yield is because of the poor land, that is the soil fertility, because it is believed that the soil in the tropics, or the tropics, are very low in nutrients. So, it's one of the reasons. And secondly, the technical know-how on how to apply the fertilizer and to obtain good yield is also a factor. And I can say some of the farmers are not given appropriate doses and in the appropriate time for the fertilizer application to obtain higher yield. So this may be few of the reasons why we are having low yield compared to other countries. Thank you.
Excellent, Nathan. Excellent. I mean, you summarized everything. All that you mentioned is what is called GAP, good agronomic practice. Farmers are not, for a lot of reasons, majorly economic reasons. And we're discovering it's not just economic reasons, but just sheer lack of knowledge. But the main thing is economic reasons. Farmers don't have the resources to invest so much in their farms, so they use little fertilizers. Because you mentioned the soils are not very fertile, farmers have to depend a lot on fertilizers. And some don't just know what to do. Of course, they know they have to farm every year to eat, but they lack the good agronomic knowledge, they don't implement good agronomic practice in their fields. And this is leading us to what we'll talk about today, because the essence of this training is we can't leave this class and go back the same way. We can't leave this class and go to the field and watch farmers do the same thing and expect to get a different result. We hope to leave this class, leave this training with new knowledge, new ideas that we will impact our farmers with, and we expect results. So it is hoped that if Nathan is managing a cluster of farmers and they've all been getting less than 1 ton per yield for their rice or maize, by end of the dry season farm, by end of rains-fed farm next year, we should be able to take data from Nathan's group of farmers and say, these things Nathan learned, this is what he's been able to implement, So that brings us also to another important topic, our duties as climate smart agronomists, our duties as field agronomists, advising farmers, helping them to know better on how to maximize, their yields. Why it's described as yield per hectare is because we don't need to farm 2 hectares to have 10 tons of maize per hectare. If you have the right seeds, you have the right inputs, you are practicing the right agronomic practice. At most, you should be able to have 8 tons, 7 tons, 5 tons is fair per hectare. So you see, you having more hectares to farm should be an advantage because you will be harvesting more. But if you are farming 4 or 5 hectares and you can't brag of even 10 tons, you're spending more money, spending more resources, which is where the climate smart comes in, than you are investing. And farming is a big economic investment. It's not like before people go to the bush, clear free farms, fields, farm, and then whatever come they take. Now, as a farmer, you either lease land or you will deal with security in your farm, and you spend a lot of money on seeds, on irrigation, on agrochemicals, and on harvesting. So you see, farming is become a lot of investment, and farmers have to be encouraged to take stocks of their investment. You can't just go to the farm, spend money, spend time, and at the end of the day, you are not taking records of what you are putting in and whether what is coming out is encouraging. So I'll allow some other persons to contribute. The floor is open. Please share with us. We're all here to learn. Please let's feel free to share. We don't have so much time. Just unmute yourself and speak into the mic. Kelvin, are you saying something?
Those are.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, my network is giving me a little bit difficult to connect. So I wanted to contribute to some of the factors that are contributing to low yield per hectare.
Go ahead.
Hello, sir. Okay. Say, most of these smallholder farmers, they lack the necessary tools for them to engage in high production of rice and maize. And even if they wish to have the tools, they don't have the available finance where to access it. And the technology development, most of them are not up to that technical know-how. So they don't know how to assess, to research, maybe even without the help of field agents, they themselves, they can be able to research on their own to see how they can improve their production. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're right. Lack access to finance, poor technical knowledge, poor access to inputs, access to machineries. We need to begin to think, how do we correct this? As field agronomists, what information can we take to farmers to help them increase their yields? What information can we take to farmers that will help them do things better? Today, we'll look at post and pre and post-harvest management, another very important topic. Farmers are exposed to a lot of challenges to produce food, but just when they are done producing it, how to manage it, how to utilize it, how to properly store it now becomes a challenge. So you see, a farmer can go to the market, spend a lot of money buying inputs, suffer in the field to grow 4 or 5 tons of rice. But between his farm and the storehouse, or within the storehouse and the point where he's supposed to sell the grains, he's losing up to 2 or 1 ton out of that. So you see, food waste is another thing, because it's not enough to know how to produce these grains, but how do I manage them in the field? How do I manage them in the storage so that I can properly maximize the economic benefit? Okay, we can take one more person before we commence today's class. Any other person? Please feel very free to talk. How about the group in Gombe? I'm not hearing from them. Can someone speak from there? The group in the hall, in the office.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
It seems like the farmers, they do not have the technical know-how on how to apply the fertilizer and other irrigational method.
I agree.
And they don't have enough capital to invest in the business. of farming, dry season farming.
Yes.
And some of them, they use traditional method. They do not use to adopt the new technology.
So
So
Yusuf, just one question to you as a climate smart agronomist in the field, how do you help farmers overcome this challenge?
Hello?
Yes, how do you help farmers overcome this challenge?
By giving them orientation with latest development from the finding of International Institute of Agriculture and other extension services. And by bringing in the new seed variety that are early developing or early maturing, improve variety. I mean, and in terms of animal, improve what breeds. So that's all I can have.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome. Welcome. I like to hear from the group in the hall, in the office in Gombe. Are they here? Is Maria here? Okay, it's almost 9:30. We have to move. Let's get going. And so today we'll continue with our class, and we're rounding up this phase. And so we have about 5 topics to cover. The first one, of course, is introduction. The first speaker talked about, and the second person who responded. In fact, everyone, Kelvin and the rest, Nathan, Yusuf, people spoke a lot about the challenges farmers are facing. They are not able to apply the adequate nutrients the crops need, apply and use the right seeds at the right time. They are not able to have access to technology like tractors, like harvesters, like plowers, ridgers, threshers. They're not able to do that. So they do a lot of things in a very primitive way, and there are challenges. Good introduction to good agricultural practice will handle this. Lesson 2 is understanding integrated plant nutrition system. Earlier, we spoke yesterday and yesterday about a more modern approach to managing plant and soil nutrients, such that the soil is healthy, it's fertile, and the crops are not impacted, wildlife is not impacted, and even human life is not threatened. So we will learn that a more modern way of managing both animal and plant nutrients. We as human beings know one thing, that we eat balanced diet. We don't just eat one diet. Our diet is balanced. Every day we can't go without eating a balanced diet. There's a recommended diet that is balanced also for plants. And these diets, there are ways we eat it. And there are certain food we eat as humans. They'll say, oh, it's high in cholesterol. Stay off it. It will impact your health. Even though it's food, but it's harmful to you. And then you adjust. Then you find yourself looking healthy. You don't adjust, you keep at it. One day you go to the hospital and it's sad news. So you see, it's not just enough to eat, but eating healthy is another good thing. So plants also, animals also have to eat healthy, just like human beings. Lesson 3 is understanding integrated pest, disease, and weed management. There is an integrated approach, which is more modern, which is more environmental friendly, which is more affordable, which is more impactful when managing disease, managing pest, and managing weed. One of the challenge, the poor agronomic practice, which is the opposite of good agronomic practice that farmers are engaging, that is harmful, is the fact that they embrace only one part the chemical aspect. They do not know, or they know they don't believe it's effective, or they don't just have an idea at all that there are other ways to manage pests beyond spraying chemicals. They don't know, or they don't practice, even if they know that there are alternative ways to manage weed. There are alternative ways to manage diseases in the field without just resorting alone, that word stressed, to chemical use. And one interesting thing to ask us, just to get us thinking, is how were our ancestors 100 years ago farming when they didn't have access to chemicals? How were our ancestors 50 years ago in Nigeria farming when they didn't have access to insecticides, herbicides? How were Nigerian farmers able to produce the pyramids in Kano? How were Nigerian farmers able to be the largest producer of cocoa, largest producer of granite in the whole world back then, the 80s, the 90s? Largest producer of palm oil. We heard stories how Malaysia came to Nigeria to collect seeds from us. Today is history. How were we able to do all this without access to chemicals, access to herbicides, access to fertilizers? How were we able to do that? Those questions will help us realize that there are alternative things our ancestors were practicing that we've thrown away, and we're embracing a more modern approach, but we're embracing it the wrong way, and is impacting our environment, impacting our lives, and impacting our productivity. So like we're discussing earlier, there must, and there is something we're doing wrong. What is India doing right that they are achieving as much as 10 tons of rice harvest per hectare? And mind you, in India, they have a very parallel data like us. In India, they are smallholder farmers. In India, they are poor farmers. In India, there are farmers who are struggling to have access to inputs. But how come they are able to achieve more yield per hectare than the same poor Nigerian farmers? Same farmers in Nigeria facing challenges of weather are not able to achieve even half of that. What are they doing in Rwanda? They are able to produce more healthy food and have more access to the international market. And Nigerian food is rejected in the international market because they say it has so much chemicals, they can't export them. We need to find out. There must be something these people are getting right, we are not. What are farmers in Zimbabwe doing, in Malawi doing, that they are able to achieve from the same seeds sold in Malawi and Zimbabwe, from the same smallholder farmers, that they are able to achieve 10 tons of yield of seed-co maize that we are also now having access to in Nigeria, that we cannot achieve even 2 to 3 tons. What are farmers in China doing with their rice varieties that they are able to achieve high tonnage, high returns, and we are not doing right? You must have heard of the rice variety called Gawala. Very, very, very high yielding rice variety. But the same rice variety to yield 10 tons per hectare is brought to Nigeria, and we're not able to yield up to 5 tons. What's going on? We need to find out. I believe at the end of this class, if we can address some of these things, we see Nigeria moving forward. We see the North moving forward, see farmers moving forward. So the fourth lesson is understanding sustainable pre and post-harvest management practices. Then eventually we'll talk about our roles as a climate smart agronomists. And Doctors, help me mute people who are muting themselves so that I'm not interrupted. And then importantly, we will also look at methods we can use to encourage farmers to embrace a more climate-friendly farm practice, more climate-friendly lifestyle, more friendly approaches to doing that. So we'll progress with our meeting today. This module presents management practices. Of course, we're talking about GAP, good agronomic practice. This module presents management practice and technologies for climate change adaptation and mitigation. It covers practices that reduce production risk and lower greenhouse gas emissions. It's simply saying that it's practice that will reduce environmental impacts, particularly production of CO2 and other carbon-related particles that will get the environment harmed. Thereby, better yields are guaranteed, Most of these practices prevent soil health and fertility damage. Better yields are guaranteed. They importantly also prevent the excessive release of carbon, manage waste and other resources in the environment. One key gap, I'm using a short word for good agronomic practice. One key gap practice is the use of quality seed. One of the members who gave a feedback earlier talked about farmers not having access to the good and the right seeds. There's a clear difference between seeds that are good, have high quality, and seeds that have poor quality. Seeds that have high good quality are seeds that can withstand disease. They are seeds that can mature early. They are seeds that can withstand harsh weather environments. They are not seeds that when the rain is high, they can easily be destroyed. They are not seeds that when the soil is not very fertile as we have in Nigeria, or farmers can't use so much fertilizers, they will not yield so much. Because for seeds to be good, to have high quality, that means with minimal input use, minimal fertilizer use, they will explode in their production. They are seeds that can compete favorable with pests and weeds. They are not seeds that in the presence of weeds, they will struggle. No. So you see, access to good quality seeds, access to good quality planting materials. Before we had rice varieties that were struggling, they had poor yields, disease competitions were poor. Now we have access to seeds of rice, of soybeans, of maize. Now we have indeterminate varieties of vegetables that will continue to fruit as they grow. We've seen pawpaw varieties, Malika, fruits from the beginning of the base like cocoa all the way to the top. These are varieties of seeds that will give us high yields. So quality seeds cut the cost of production by nearly half. You can imagine that if a seed has high quality, the cost of production will be cut by half. Why? Because these seeds will give high yields to cover any losses. If you are farming 1 acre of a particular seed and you're having to buy 100 kg of the seed to plant and you can't harvest up to half a ton, it's a loss for you. So an indispensable input for climate smart crop production is the use of quality seeds. Do our farmers have access to quality seeds? If they have access to quality seeds, do they know where to get these seeds? Our jobs as climate smart agronomists is to point these farmers to the right direction. Some of us will have to get into the business, into the practice of taking these seeds to them, setting up demonstration for them to see. So seed A, say, look, seed A, this is seed A, this is seed B. Seed A, when there's too much rain, it will not fruit. Seed B, seed A, when there is little fertilizer, it will not yield well. But seed B, just minimal fertilizer application, and it will give you bumper harvest. Seed B, if the rain let it fall cat and dog, as they say, it will impact it, but it's sure to give you good yields. These are seeds we should look out for. Of course, not GMOs, not synthetic disease seeds that will harm the environment, but seeds that have been grown in ways that are natural, that will give yields naturally. So good seeds are more efficient in nutrient use. I've hammered on this. For seeds to have high quality, they must be able to take little nutrient and turn it around and make so much out of it. So we need to understand that good seeds are the key to bumper harvest. If a farmer spends all his money putting up a lot of nutrient in his soil and he plants poor seeds, he's wasting his time. He's wasting his money. He will not have good yields. If a farmer, so each of these good agronomic practices, each of these gaps are interlinked. They are interdependent. They can't work exclusively. You can't suffer to spend money to fertilize your field and go plant poor seeds. You can't spend money to buy good seeds and then your practice in the field is poor. So such seeds are resistant to disease. They are more tolerant to drought. We've seen varieties of beans now that are highly tolerant to drought. As much as December, they are still green. You know, they can thrive in a wild environment. They can withstand challenges of the environment. So we have to understand the inevitable or unavoidable quality of good seeds. As farmers, as climate smart agronomists, if we need to produce more with little, if we need to increase our yield per hectare, we must embrace the use of quality seeds. And so we move on to a very important topic also under GAP, biodiversity management. What essentially is biodiversity? I'll try to explain it in a very simple term. Last time we talked about symbiosis. The environment is connected. Nothing is disjointed. If there are trees in your field, they have their contribution. You know, in the north, we are people who appreciate trees because we know the scorching effect of the sun. Now, if the sun is scorching us, imagine how it's scorching the soil. Imagine how it's scorching the insects in the soil. Imagine how it's scorching the bacteria in the soil that are beneficial. Imagine how the heat of the sun is scorching the rodents that will dig and aerate the soil. And so we don't destroy wildlife and say, oh, well, remember earlier we talked about how Ebola broke out. We can't destroy the forest and say, well, we don't live in the forest. We just need the wood for timber and for firewood. And then we forget that there are wildlife that live in this forest. There are wildlife that use these materials. And because we destroy their environment, they begin to look for alternative environment. So the environment is interconnected, and the more diverse the biology of the environment, the richer the environment is. If you go to an environment, the only people living there are human beings. Such environment is not biodiverse. There will be challenges. There won't be trees growing that human beings can use to make wood. There won't be worms, there won't be rodents, there won't be bacteria enriching the soil. And so we need to understand that the more biodiverse an environment is, the richer the environment. And so there's a chart here. It says benefits of agricultural biodiversity. It offers us diverse and nutritious food. I mean, if you go into the field, you have access to, say, cucumber in your farm. You have access to rice in that same farm. You have access to pepper in that same farm. That's a diverse farm. You don't have only access to rice and then you go to the market looking for every other thing. Same with the environment. You know, it helps plants and animals adapt better. That's just the truth. But a more biodiverse environment, the more easily plants and animals and human beings and wildlife can adapt. The less biodiverse, the less adaptation is. Another important thing about biodiversity we need to look at is it helps us overcome challenges. You remember the analogy I gave us earlier of Jewish farmers who will release dogs, geese, and chickens in their farm because they believe as they roam around. I think we have dogs, a lot of dogs, if you go around the North and Guinea farms. If you watch these animals, what they do is that they dig the ground, they pick dirt like dogs, they dig up trenches, dig up gutters. Pigs, these animals, you might not appreciate them beyond the fact that they are meat and domestic animals. But I guarantee you, they are preventing, for example, dogs will pick larvae of mosquitoes, larvae of CSA flies, you know, as they do their digging and trenching. That the activity is reducing the disease impact or pressure that the environment will go through. We can't do that, but they are doing that for us. That's the benefit of biodiversity. So you increase the resilience, look at that, of producers. A farmer is able to enjoy more resilience if his field is biodiverse. If he's sterile and only what he has is a monocrop, he will spend so much money, you know, fumigating, applying insecticides just so that he can produce something. When you look at the economy of scale of that production, the cost of using insecticide and herbicide will be more. And so you see, it's not a smart way of producing. And so item 4, it says preserves the health of our environment and ecosystem. I talked extensively about this. And these organisms, we might not appreciate them. You know, have you ever wondered why on earth are there mosquitoes? You won't appreciate mosquitoes in as much as they are causing billions of naira worth of disease, millions of deaths every month or year. But you won't appreciate them until we extinct mosquitoes from the earth. That's when we begin to realize, wow, there is an importance to mosquitoes. Oh, you know, I did a research once about the benefits of bats. Who believe bats are so important? If you're traveling through Nigeria, particularly around the north, you realize there are a lot of tall palm trees growing by the riversides in the north. Those are where you see a lot of palm trees, not just palm trees, other fruit trees. You know, those are migratory routes of bats. Every year as they migrate across the Sahel, they travel with seeds. A simple way, another one is to watch cows. As cows migrate through the field, seeds they ate from a field, they drop their poo. Those pools will germinate with those grasses. They have their relevance. These are methods of seed dispersals. If these bats were extinct, maybe we'll never have had palms in sub-Saharan Africa. Now that's bad. By the time we examine closely another animal, another species, you won't believe it. There are certain trees you see if you travel across Nigeria, you realize that these seeds, some birds disperse them, some insects disperse them, some animals disperse them. If these animals are not there, these seeds won't be there. Have you observed that bats, when they come to lick mango trees during mango fruiting season, as they migrate away from the mango fruit, they go away with those mango seeds into the bush and they are dispersing them. Every creature we see on earth has a relevance. Until we identify it, is our responsibility to preserve it. Who knows, the plant you are spraying with, farmers are spraying with chemicals, might be the solution to a disease that have not even expressed itself. Who knows, a plant that we are killing now because we've not seen the relevance is a plant that we will find in future to cure HIV. And so until we know the relevance of these species, we must protect them. That's a climate smart choice. But today, if we have eradicated them because of our greed, because of our poor climate smart decisions, and tomorrow we are not looking for them, what becomes of us? What becomes of us? And some of these plants, they are very sensitive to chemicals. There are certain plants you have to go to the bush now to look for because you won't find them around us anymore. Anyone remember during Corona, there were all kind of herbs that were being recommended. I remember in Madagascar, the president was promoting Artemisia and all. And you know, we had Artemisia, the wild ones all over northern Nigeria, and people were looking everywhere for them. Now, knowledge is key, and the relevance of this knowledge is when we know the use of things. They said when you don't know the use of something, abuse is inevitable. It's just inevitable. So importantly, biodiversity is key to give us a more diverse and a more elaborate access to resources. So the more biodiverse an environment is, the more resilient it will be. Biodiversity is an important criterion for economic stability and productivity. The less biodiverse an environment is, the more economic challenge that environment will have. One of the best analogy to use to describe biodiversity is human beings with unique skills. If you lock 100 people up in a room, you will be shocked for 1 week. You'll be shocked what each of those 100 people can do. Maybe one is a skillful singer, one is a skillful dancer, he will entertain the group. One is a skillful electrician, all kind of skills will be manifested. Imagine if all of them were the same and they don't have their uniformity. In this group now, if we begin to interact personally, we discover what kind of skills we have. That's the spice of life. So biodiversity is that variety that gives life spice. And without it, we're in trouble. So biodiversity is important in climate smart agriculture as it has direct impact on pest, disease, and yield potential. We've stressed this a whole lot. The more biodiverse an environment is, the more easier it is to manage it. One of the challenges with modern diseases, if you look at community health, one of the growing challenges with disease epidemic, disease manifestation that emerging diseases, as they call them, that we're seeing is because our environments are becoming less biodiverse. They are creatures that are hosts to certain pests and disease. Into those pests, to those creatures, they don't manifest, they are symptomatic. They are just there. They are host. They cooperate, they function symbiotically. But in the absence of that host, they must survive. Everybody's thinking, how do I survive? They must survive. And maybe to survive, maybe they find a new host. And that new host might express symptoms. Then disease starts. Then we're cracking our head. Where did this one come from again? Which one is this infection again? These are the issues. So it's a very broad topic we can't exhaust, and the negative impact. You talk about opportunistic infections. A very perfect example is the Ebola. In those monkeys, I hope you know, they are symptomatic. Ebola doesn't kill these monkeys. They are living very fine. The human beings come in contact with them and it becomes virulent, it becomes deadly, becomes hurtful. So a lot of things we're seeing. And in the context of farming, you know, a lot of disease we're observing in our crops is because the natural habitats for these insect pests as well. They are not pests to these animals or plants, but they are to us because we don't need them. The reason they are expressing as diseases in our farms is because we've destroyed their natural habitats. So they don't have any other choice but to come and feed on what they see is available. And when they do that, there's a conflict between us and them, and we see them as pests. They also, funny enough, see us as pests too, because we're trying to prevent them from staying alive. And so we need to understand that every action we take on Earth as human beings have a corresponding and equal impact. And that's where climate smart decisions come in. Whatever you're doing, you have to ask yourself, is this going to better me and my environment, or is going to, even if it's comfortable for me now, is it going to be continuously comfortable in the future? If I cut down all the trees in my compound and interlock everywhere, when the weather starts getting hot, why am I complaining? Because there are no shades. And by the time I do that, my neighbors do that, everyone is going to suffer the consequences. And so we need to understand that biodiversity is key. So we move on. How do we improve water use? Biodiversity helps to improve water use and management. The efficient use of water, particularly in irrigation, can enhance crop yield and disease management. The precise use of fertilizer, just the right amount of fertilizer. Remember yesterday we were talking about making furrows that we can microdose in. The precise and the right use of fertilizer is just sufficient for each plant. So irrigation techniques should be addressed to manage artificial fertilizer use. So it's very important that we look at these things and understand their relevance. So biodiversity management, we continue there. And so sustainable soil and land management for an increased crop productivity. This allows for increased productivity from existing agricultural land. This eliminates the need to tamper with. This allows for an increased productivity from existing agricultural use. This importantly also eliminates the need to tamper with virgin lands. If we can produce more from our existing lands, why do we need to clear more wildlife to expand our farms? If we can increase our yields from the existing fields we have, why do we need to burn up more fields only to be producing less from them, as same as we're producing less from the initial one? So you see, these practices they correlate. Sustainable mechanization is equally encouraged. It also encourages technologies for decision making, such as precision agriculture. Another important topic we need to look at in climate smart farming: precision. The word precision, using the precise amount of water. We talked about drip irrigation yesterday. Did any of us have time to go and research on drip? I deliberately didn't put the details on the WhatsApp because I felt I was spoon feeding everyone a whole lot. If we can go find things for ourselves, we enjoy and we learn better. Drip irrigation is designed to give just a precise amount of water, just a precise amount of nutrient to crops. So we need to look on that. Soil test, we talked about it yesterday. We talked also about irrigational management. We need to appreciate these things, the benefits to us. So we continue understanding integrated nutrition management. A very key topic we'll spend some time to dwell on today. There is an infograph on the screen. I don't know how clear it is to us, but what is on the gray circles and what is on the purple or pink circle is the integrated nutrition management system. Then on the gray, you see there you have organic manures, you have green manures, you have crop residues and organic waste, you have synthetic fertilizers, you have crop rotation and intercropping, you have biofertilizers. But in the center, you have your integrated nutrition management. So what this essentially does is that it's a more modern approach. Instead of sticking to using just chemicals, and we are saying chemical fertilizers, chemical inputs generally are harmful. How do we integrate the benefit from the chemical and integrate the benefit from the organic, such that the chemical is not harmful to the organic and the organic can cohabit with the chemical and we can enjoy a better yield. You know, it's like I have just one hand and I'm limited with one hand. I have just my right hand and I'm limited with it. I have just my left hand and I have no right, so I'm limited. But I have an opportunity to have my both left and my right, and then I can do much more. So this approach gives room for increase, gives room for fertilizer use efficiency. It's a better and a more modern and a more improved version of managing soil nutrients. Equally is the same way a better option to manage crop disease, better ways to manage plants and animals than it is to managing other options. So give me a minute. I'm trying to make some adjustment. I will continue this class shortly. Okay, we can continue. Sorry, I was making some adjustment to the meeting so that some other staffs can help me manage the meeting as I teach. So we look at this. Chemicals, can I be heard?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So studies have continued to demonstrate that the most efficient plant nutrient management system is a careful, I like the word there, we have to emphasize it, careful integration, careful blend of organic and inorganic fertilizers. I explained the reason why. The system seeks to harness the benefit of both nutrient protocols. Both here means the organic and the inorganic. Chemical fertilizers and the organic fertilizers. Let's look at chemical fertilizers independently. Inorganic fertilizer or chemical fertilizer or synthetic fertilizers, as the words are used interchangeably, they are fast nutrient release fertilizers. That means if I go put my urea in my maize crop today, my rice crop today, I see the impact right there immediately. But if I put my cow dung, it takes time as the cow dung decompose in the field, depending on the phase of the cow dung you apply. If you apply a cow dung that is well decomposed, you begin to enjoy the nutrient fairly immediately. If it's the one that is not fully decomposed, like we practice a lot in Nigeria, it takes time for these cow dungs or chicken poo to begin to decompose before we see the benefit. And so you see that, but unlike that, chemical fertilizers, the moment you put them, it's just like sugar. The moment you put them in you put sugar in your gari or your tea, you can taste it immediately. I like that analogy, boy. If you look at the cube sugar and the powder sugar, if you put cube sugar in your tea, you have to take time to stir that cube to dissolve before you can feel the taste. Even though the cube is there, if it doesn't dissolve, you won't get the taste of the sugar. And so the organic fertilizer takes time to decompose, but the chemical fertilizer is right there. The solution rate of nitrogen in urea is very high. As soon as there's water, it dissolves, the plants can get it. But we'll go on to see. So chemical fertilizers can easily be washed off. Those are some of the challenges with them. Even though the nutrients can be standardized and made available in the precise amount for crops, if the weathers are not favorable, it can easily be washed off. They are very expensive. We all have ideas of the cost of 50 kg bag of urea today in the Roma. We know what it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. We know that for Golden, NPK 1515, 2010, 1010, and the rest. So you see, they are expensive. And because they are expensive, we can't afford not to manage them efficiently. So that, because one of the reasons why the world is embracing climate smart farming, climate smart choices is things are going to continue to become expensive. Sorry, we're Nigerian, let's look at the context. While Buhari was in office, we were all complaining and saying things were expensive. Who will help us? Today, there's a new government. Anyone realize what's happening? things are going up. And a better government, we maybe take off this government for whatever reason, or the tenure finishes, a new one comes. It's like the trajectory is upward. It never seems to be coming down. Take it back 3 years, 3 governments ago. Good luck. From good luck to Buhari, from Buhari to the current government. Now, the point of this is not any political criticism, but just to demonstrate that, look, the population of the world is growing. Some of the challenges we are facing is beyond us as Nigerians. It's global. And the trend is that the economies of the world is going to be more stressed. Why? Because there are more people demanding for less resources, for competing for few resources. And so competition is more intense. We must come to a point where we are able to make smart decisions. We can't be wasteful anymore. It's just how we can't be wasteful with resources as individuals, just how we can't be wasteful with resources as homes, so we can't be wasteful with resources as farmers. And so every resources we have now must count. We must use it in the best efficient way. How can I use a bag of fertilizer to give me more yield in my farm? That's the question. That's what all this talk we've been having for the past 3 days is about. How can I use my soil in a way that it benefits me more? How can I use my knowledge to benefit me more? We can't continue farming the old ways we've been farming. We can't continue to farm with so much money, so expensive inputs, only for us to harvest little. No, something is wrong. Is there a better way we can do it? We need to look at those options. And so that's the summary of climate smart, farming, climate smart choices. How can we farm in such a way that our environment is more healthy? Instead of farm today, we harvest, and tomorrow there's very little for us to harvest. So let's look at organic in comparison to the inorganic. But just for emphasis, we earlier talked about the inorganic. Importantly, if you ask me, the benefit of the inorganic fertilizer is that it is available right there at the time the plant needs it. It is available right there. We mentioned that they can be quantified. You can tell me, look, use 2 grams of urea for this, you get your result. For the cow dungs, for the poultry dropping, you can't be very precise scientifically. The quantifying is a little bit not standardized. Of course, you say use a shovel full or maybe a bucket full, but do you know if that's more? But the other negative impact of it is that they can easily be washed off. So once plants can't access them at the time they need them or the time it's applied, you begin to lose the efficiency. And of course, we talked that they're expensive, but importantly, on the long run, they have a long-lasting, negative effect on the soil and the environment. That's an aspect of the economy of use of chemical fertilizer we need to look at. What this means is that the more you use chemical fertilizer in your farm, yes, you are getting yields, but the more your soil is dying. Has anyone in the class noticed that? Please feel free to unmute and answer to that. Has anyone noticed the more chemical you use in your farm, the more next year you will buy?
Yes, sir.
Good. So that's the truth. So the question now is there a way around this? If I'm using 2 bags of fertilizer this year, that means next year I have to use more and the fertilizer price is increasing. What is a better alternative we can do? So that's where we're getting to with this whole talk. So let's look at the organic. You say they are from natural sources. When something is natural, that means it's in harmony with nature because the source is from nature. So another one, the nutrient release is slow, it's gradual over a long time. I'm using natural things we know around us. If you take poultry, cashew kaji or cashew shanu and take to your field, if you observe, even at harvest time, you still see some of those things in your farm. Maybe the wood chipping or the sawdust or the poultry dropping, you still see them. You realize it's not like urea you apply today, you go tomorrow or next month, it's no more there. You see, these things decompose over a long time. And you understand what happens here is that the nutrient is released gradually, which is the natural way. So plants have access to nutrient longer. Help me mute that person. Plants have more access to nutrient in a longer duration of time than a one-off. Remember yesterday we shared a very important quote. We said that soil nutrition management should be treated as a long-term investment, not a one-off investment as we do in our farming. We just put nutrients in the soil during farm season. After that, we abandon it until the next farm season. No, we're building the soil fertility. We're building the soil fertility. And because we are building it, we're investing in it until the soil becomes very resilient on its own. And so importantly, the organic fertilizers are not just natural. They release nutrients gradually over a long time. And there are no buildup of toxins. They are not harsh to crops. You hardly will apply manure and to burn your crops. They contain both the macro and the micronutrients because they are from natural source. You don't have that issue where it's just NP and K. You will always have the other micronutrients. But remember that they are slow release. Now, we need to look at the negative impact of organic. If you ask me, the key negative impact is that they are slow release. Remember yesterday we were talking about cereal crops like maize and rice, which are key crops to this program, that the first 21 days is critical for them. And so you see a parallel. If organic fertilizers are releasing nutrient over a long time, but they are slow release, how do we mitigate, or rather, how do we make for that shortfall of that slow release? You see the need for a blend here. That's where the whole IPNS program talks about. There's a manual on the group on IPNS. Please study it if you have the time. You will learn a whole lot on how this technology works. So we will proceed. So the IPNS seeks to integrate both fertilizers in a holistic approach. The system helps to maintain and sustain crop productivity in an ecologically compatible way, socially acceptable and economically viable way. That's what I've been talking about. This blend is more environmental friendly. This blend will be more socially acceptable. Why? Because you are not going to be producing harmful foods, just a minimal blend of the inorganic to the organic. And the economy here is that you do the maths, the organic fertilizer, if is way more affordable than the chemical fertilizer. And so you spend less money to produce more. So by blending the organic and the inorganic fertilizers, farmers are guaranteed use efficiency. Use efficiency is what I'm talking about. When you use the organic alone, you have that slow release, so you don't get your full efficiency. When you use the chemical, you get your quick result, but the long-term impact on the soil is high. So there's no fertilizer use efficiency on the both. But when you blend, the blend requires more organic and minimal inorganic. That word minimal, we need to look at it. So when you blend your fertilizers, you enjoy a more fertilizer efficiency, use efficiency. Anyone notice farmers these days no longer trust a lot of fertilizer blend. So Nigerian farmers will buy Indoroma, buy Nutore, buy Dangote, and mix it. What they are trying to achieve there is fertilizer use efficiency. They understand that because of the economy, some of these companies are beginning to drop their hand. As we say in Nigeria, they are dropping the quality of the fertilizer. So they say, perhaps if I cut from here and join here, what is less here will make up for this. And so you see them blending their own fertilizer themselves in the farm. Those decisions, those choices did not come overnight. It's from experience in the field. And so there is a fertilizer brand called Rich U Organic NPK fertilizer. As we get to work more, we'll see it and use it. It's a 50 kg bag and it's 100% organic. I talked about it earlier. And this fertilizer has both micro and macronutrients. But if you look at the organic composition, it's 5, 10, 7, 10. So you see the nitrogen content is not so high. It's very difficult to get high organic nitrogen contents. And so for farmers, for example, that are using this Rich organic fertilizer, which is the fertilizer we're adopting for this program. It's organic. Remember, we're doing climate smart. We're embracing technologies and products that are encouraging a climate smart choice, because we are trying to move away from too much chemicals and minimal. So for example, a farmer who is to use this 50 kg NPK fertilizer, all he or she needs is 10 kg urea blend to 10 kg any other chemical NPK blend. What this means simply is that instead of a farmer to use 4 or 5 bags of chemical fertilizer, some farmers split it. They use 2 urea, 2 NPK. All you need is, per hectare, all you need is 4 to 5 bags, depending on your economy. 4 to 5 bags of the rich yield fertilizer, and to every bag, you blend with 10 kg urea. And when it's time for you to apply your NPK, you blend with just 10 kg. So what this invariably means is that per hectare, you need 4, depending on the volume. So let's say if we adapt to the standard practice, maybe 5 bags to 3 or 4 bags of this organic fertilizer, you need 1 bag urea, 1 bag NPK. And you will observe that you will get your yields. Why? Because the nitrogen need of the soil is not so much, it's just minimal. The organic need is what is more, because that's what gives the soil life. But what we are currently practicing, which is the other way around, we use more chemical and little organic. And so what this training is helping us to understand is to think in a smarter way, to think in a more productive way. And so we will look at these practicals and see if these things are true or if they are lies, or if they give true results or if they are fake. You realize that when you use more organic and little chemical, the soil is more healthy. The soil is more productive. You know, these things also happen to we human beings. Look at a so-called, let me use the analogy in Nigeria, rich man's child, who all he or she does is feeds on Indomie, feeds on junks, drink Coke, eat all kind of foods, grow very fat, and in little or no time, they say this child is diabetic. He has high blood pressure. And look at the so-called average-looking young man or young woman who is able to discipline him or herself to feed on natural food. Anyone realizes it's becoming an explosive trend in Nigeria now. People are encouraging people to eat more natural food. You see, I had a grandmother in the village who lived up to 100. She could carry firewood even at the age of 90. Why? She ate natural. And then we in our generation, the Indomie generations, we eat and drink all kind of junks. At the age of 50, we can't even climb a hill. Our waist is paining us, our joints are paining us. Every little thing we run to the hospital. You know, you see a parallel here that the more you tweak to the chemical, to the natural things, yes, they are food. Remember the example I gave earlier, but they are harmful in the long run. But the more you lean to the organic, to the natural, to the environmental friendly, and you blend with just little of it, because there are times when you have to add Maggi to your food. There are times when you have to take 1 or 2 drinks socially. There are times when you have to add other things to spice. There are times when you have to take drugs. Drugs are not, some are not natural. And the hospital will tell you, just take 2 tablets of this anti-malaria. Take 2 today. Take 2 tomorrow. Next tomorrow, take 2. You follow those dosage. You realize that, of course, the malaria doesn't disappear overnight because you took 2 tablets today. But if you stay on it, take another 2 tomorrow, you realize you begin to get better. You begin to be able to do what you could not do. The next tomorrow, you just realize the remaining one is a finishing dose. But imagine the hospital told you, take 2 today, take 2 tomorrow, and take 2 next tomorrow, and you came in and say, hey, this malaria is tough. You got to take everything once, man. And you take all the dose. You realize that instead of killing the malaria, you kill yourself. You know, but these things are key. They are key. So remember when we started this training, I was telling us about as climate smart agronomists, our interaction with farmers, helping them to know better ways. You can't walk into a farmer who has been practicing the other way around, using chemical, and he's been working for him, and he's been having challenges or not, and you expect him to change his behavior overnight. We're creatures of habits. You need to be persuasive. Yes, the farmer is having losses. Yes, the farmer has been farming all his life. He's not been able to achieve up to 5 or 10 tons per hectare. But at least he's able to harvest 10 or 20 bags of rice, or less, slightly less. And amongst the few blind people, the only one eyed man seems to be doing well. So remember, we're trying to move away from not completely loss, maybe a more moderate harvest to a bumper harvest, maybe a moderately healthy soil to a way more healthy soil. And so if we must achieve these things, this is the way to go. Look, farmers are already discovering these things. Farmers now spend money scouting all over. Right now, it's dry season. If you move around farms, you see farmers are already heaping cow dungs in their fields. They know that the organic is the way to go. The only challenge they have is that they don't have access, like one of the person giving feedbacks earlier said. to a better options of organic fertilizers. Some don't even know their access to organic. Some have used some fake ones that didn't work. They lost hope in organic. But thank God today we have access. And this, for example, this fertilizer is like the normal one. Farmers say, the liquid one doesn't work. Oh, I'm not used to using liquid fertilizer. They are not just liquid. This is 50 kg bag, same granular fertilizers, composition, same feel like the other fertilizers. So farmers can relate to it better. So we will look at these things as we engage in a practical form. How can we use organic fertilizer? Because as farmers, as we are equally farmers, people have used organic fertilizer and it has failed them. These are some of the reasons. Remember earlier we were talking about the challenges with organic and chemicals. People use organic fertilizer with the mentality that they are chemical fertilizer. It can't work like chemical does. It's not a chemical fertilizer. And so to move away from this, we'll look more in a practical term, better ways to enrich our soil, better ways to use organic fertilizers to benefit us. And it's this IPNS protocol by blending. So you realize when you use this, remember we talked it's more ecologically compatible, socially acceptable, and economically viable. So when you use these organic fertilizers, you are guaranteed more yield because the soil organisms don't feed on chemicals. Earthworms don't feed on chemicals. Chemical kill them. The bacteria there that will turn your soil, release all the nutrients there, don't feed on chemicals. Chemicals kill them. But when you feed them with your soil organic matter, we spoke earlier the first day of the training, they have a lot of food to eat to produce more nutrients for the crops. And crops can relate more with the organic nutrients because remember, we say when something is organic, it's more close to nature than to the chemicals. So we need to look at this. So this helps farmers to use just minimal inorganic fertilizers. So you see, by doing this, you would cut more than 50% of the chemical fertilizers you use. And another important part of the organic, earlier when we were teaching, we talked about when you use a lot of cow dung in your farm, if you don't treat them or if you're not using the highly decomposed ones, you bring all kinds of disease and weeds to your farm. This is a well-packed, treated. This product has an international standard organization guarantee or certification. That means it's the highest quality organic fertilizer you can find in Nigeria. It's been standardized by NAFDAC, it's been standardized by MANCAP and the standard organization, the international standard organization, the ISO. So, but we need to teach farmers how to use it. If we don't teach them and we just throw it at them, then we go use it like they use chemicals and complain. So this is where we have work to do. So we move on. Soil and food produce are more healthy. I'm going to give you an assignment at this point, a practical assignment. I like practical assignments because you don't approach them like it's the academic approach. I have a test. If I don't pass this test, I'll fail. But this is to help you. I want you to go and look for vegetables, let's say carrot, that were growing organically. Buy or harvest if it's in your farm and eat. We will discuss this in future. We can't answer it now because it takes time. And also buy carrots, some of these things you already know, that were grown with a lot of chemicals and eat. You realize that the carrots grown with the natural approach are sweeter. They last longer when you store them. And the taste of a crop tells you of its nutritious content.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Is it allowed for farming carrot to apply chemical fertilizer?
Well, a lot of farmers are using all kinds of things to grow crops. A lot of farmers are using chemicals to farm carrots. But the point I am trying to make with this analogy is that when crops are growing organically, they taste better. They last longer. A very perfect example you can find is rake, or a common rake everywhere being pushed on the wheelbarrow. It's not as sweet as it used to be anymore because farmers are now using a lot of urea to grow it. And because urea is used, urea is salt. Rake now tastes more salty. Any sensitive person who's been used to chewing rake, find out. Rake tastes more salty now than it tastes sweet, like sugar. Because nitrogen is being replaced. And remember the statement, you are what you eat. Rake eats nitrogen in form of urea to use urea to make its sugar molecules. There will be some salt molecules in it. That's why rake is salty. Same with every other crop. In Benue, farmers are realizing that the more urea they use to farm, the less their yams survive in storage. You know, yam business is during the dry season when yam has been stored. So if I farm with so much urea and my yam is spoiling in storage, what's the economic benefit? Because I can harvest very hefty tubers, but in storage, they spoil. So farmers are realizing the less urea they use in their yam farms and more organic fertilizer, they still get the same big tubers, but the yam survive more. I will explain to you what happens when you use a lot of urea to grow your tuber crops like yam, cassava, and why they spoil. Hygroscopy in chemistry. Anyone remembers that salts have the ability to absorb moisture when you expose them. And salt molecule is highly hygroscopic, can absorb moisture from the air. And so that's what happens when those yams contain those salt molecules. They are able to absorb moisture in storage and begin to decompose. So you see, there are a lot of practice where we'll get to that as we approach pre and post-harvest management. There are a lot of practices we're embracing that are harmful in the long run, but because of the immediate effect we see, we don't appreciate it so much. So soil and food produce are more healthy. Remember yesterday we talked about health per hectare, not just yield this time around. We're looking to not just produce a lot of food, we're looking to produce healthy food too. Because we are what we eat. If we eat a lot of chemicals, it affects us. Anyone realize now that there's a lot of cancer out there? There is a lot of high blood pressure out there. We can't exhaust them. A lot of cardiovascular related diseases. It's what we eat. It's what we eat compared to our ancestors 50 years, 100 years past. They live more healthy lives. The difference is they ate more healthy food than us. Of course, they had their own challenges too. You know, so farmers save on the cost of inputs because these organic approaches are way more affordable. So we look at the next topic, integrated pest disease and weed management. Integrated pest and weed management are forms of GAP, remember GAP, good agronomic practices, that is aimed at an efficient and effective pest management. It's not just effective, it's also efficient. Neither is it efficient, it's also efficient and effective. That means you attack the pest, you attack the weed, you attack the disease from an approach that is long-term solution, from an approach that is more effective. For example, yesterday I was talking about scouting. As a climate smart agronomist, you have to teach farmers how to scout. Don't wait until foul army worm has taken over your entire maize before you are running up and down finding how to treat it. Or it's too late, like the question one of us asked yesterday. The farmer did not apply fertilizer. For the fertilizer, for the maize to have gotten so green, yellow, is because either the farmer did not go to the farm at all or somehow he was blind. Because the fertilizer deficiency cannot and will never manifest overnight. You go to the farm every day, you are scouting. My maize looking very healthy. This area seems not to look so healthy. I have to come back and treat it. There's some disease beginning to manifest here. I have to make a quick economic decision. Either cut off the vegetables here or treat immediately this localized area so that the disease doesn't spread. So scouting is very key. And scouting is not just for disease. It's not just for the nutrient deficiency. You're also scouting for weeds. You go to your farm every day, you are checking out, this weed's growing too fast. Can I plan and budget to weed next week? Can I weed today, weed next tomorrow, and then next week I'll be done? You don't wait until the weeds have overtaken your farm. These are some little mistakes farmers make that it costs them on the long run, because mind you, this weed is also feeding on the fertilizer you applied. It's competing with your crops. So yes, you've applied your fertilizer. Yes, the fertilizer is good. But if weed is taking up to 50% of it, what will be left for your crops? That's minus the ones rain washed away. You know. So farm owners maximize use and optimize business operations, important environmental impacts and minimize. So let's look at weed and pest management. Efforts are needed to reduce crop losses due to weed and pest through the implementation of integrated pest management, early detection, and timely intervention. See, I jumped ahead myself. I talked about early detection. You can only detect it early when you are scouting. Very important approach to management of pest, disease, and weeds in the farm. You must scout as a farmer. We have to teach farmers how to scout. Don't just stand in one place and assume everywhere is looking green, uniform when you look at it across. Stroll in between. Just stroll and check the crops. I met a poultry farmer in Jos. I'll never forget this woman. She says she can tell when her chickens are not doing very well because there's a way they lie. And I asked her, how do you know? She says she spent time with them. They communicate to her. She can't express it, but she just knows if her birds are fine, there's a noise they make. There's a way they're excited when she comes around the poultry. If they are not doing fine, the moment she comes, she can tell something is wrong. That's a farmer who has experience in scouting, experience in bonding with her poultry birds, and she can tell. The farmer who comes there and doesn't care, how will he even know if it is? And because this lady can tell when something is wrong, she can arrest it very early. The coccidiosis don't have to spread across 100 beds before she knows. She can arrest the first few and save her poultry. These are key climate smart decisions and choices that will make, that will bless us and save us a lot. So herbicides or insecticide applications at the wrong time, we talked about this yesterday, and the wrong manner will be completely ineffective. The professional or the good agronomic practice in the field is for you to apply your herbicides early in the morning, your insecticides early in the morning, your treatment early in the morning, fertilizers early in the morning, before you continue. Oh, hold on. Give me a minute. I'll continue. Hold on. What do you want? Can you see my slides?
We cannot see it.
Oh, how come no one spoke about that? So nobody can see my screen. Hello? Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, sir. We can see you.
You can
But
see,
you can't
but
see.
we can't see the other screen you're sharing.
We can't see any picture. We can only see your picture.
Oh, you should have raised that objection. Let me know that my screen is not being shared. Okay, let me fix that before we continue with the class.
We can't see any picture, sir. We can only see your own. Okay,
Yeah,
yes,
I'm
the
working
picture is
on
now
that.
displaying.
We have started seeing
Okay.
it now.
Yes,
Oh,
uses of quality seeds.
excellent. Please, if you are having any challenge from my end, raise the objective so that we can move together.
Okay.
Yes, I had no idea. I was just going on and on, and sorry about that. It's a technical glitch from my end. Okay. And let me get my bearing where we stopped. So this is where we are. Can we go on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So herbicides or insecticide application at the wrong time and manner will be totally ineffective. Biological control options can only be effective when properly applied. And so before the interruption, I was talking about how that there's a right time and the right manner to apply your herbicides or your agrochemicals generally. If you apply herbicides slightly after rain, you have more results than when the soil is dry and the plants are dry. If you apply biological control just immediately before or after you apply chemicals, those chemicals will interfere with the biological control and there will be no effect. And so there's a right manner in form of GAP, good agricultural practice, to do these things. There's a right approach to apply these things. Remember, we talked about early application or late application. If you want to apply your herbicides, for example, you have to be in the farm early before the sun is up. Or if you are late to the farm, then you target the evening. And you have to watch your weather to be sure that it's not about to rain. Yes, we don't have access to weather predicting equipment here, but you can watch the clouds and decide. You cannot apply a biological control when you are planning to apply chemicals tomorrow. They are not compatible. Chemicals will kill the biological control methods. So herbicides allow us to control weed and reduce the number of tillage operations, as well as critical timing needed for operations. Injuries or damage to non-target species, crop injuries, and recently surface and groundwater contamination is some of the challenges that were being observed when you apply chemical to your farm. And so you need to understand that, for example, as a farmer, if yesterday we're talking about overdose use of selective, it is not always that when you apply your selective herbicides that your maize or rice will go through shock and turn pale. Those shocks we're seeing, remember I mentioned, they are overdose. So if you follow the recommended dosage, your plants will be fine, because those products are designed not to impact or affect the rice. They are designed to be resistant for rice to or maize to be resistant to them. So a high degree of technical knowledge and skill is required for effective utilization of chemicals. It's your job and duty as a climate smart agronomist to teach these farmers the right way. Insist, persuade them, help them to know this is a better option. Know the right seeds to plant, the right inputs to use, the right fertilizer to use, the right time to apply them, the right manner to apply them. And then we're coming to see the right time and right way to harvest and the right way to store them, so that after all the suffering, you don't lose your crops in storage. Another important aspect of the application of chemical inputs that we need to look at, and that we need to also emphasize to farmers as climate smart agronomists, is the use of safety protocols called personal protective equipment. Most farmers go to apply herbicides and don't wear face masks. Most farmers go to apply herbicides and don't know they need to be walking with the wind, not against the wind. Most farmers go to apply herbicides and don't demarcate their fields. They assume that they can mark it with a stick and they will know that they've not passed this place. And so it's important that at least if a farmer is to use a herbicide or a chemical, you should be able to wear a face mask. Yes. Yes.
There are some farmers that they used to ask me like, is there any specific time for applying herbicide in their farms? Because
yes,
sometimes they use with different herbicides, they use with different chemicals. So for the people that they used to farm cowpea, so is there any specific time that they are applying their chemical into their farms, or morning or evening? That's the only right time to apply the herbicide in their farms.
Thank you, Aliu. The right time to apply whether treatment like insecticides or herbicides to the farm is in the morning, when the sun is not fully out and so hot, and in the evenings when the sun. By using morning and evening, we have to be careful that we are making reference to the intensity of the sun, because it can be evening and the sun is still very hot. Now, the reason why we're advising that chemicals should be applied early hours of the morning before the sun is overhead and so hot, or in the evening when the sun is down, is because the sun causes all kinds of reactions that are not pleasing with these chemicals, and the impact on the field will be more. That's number one. Number two, the temperature of the field at that moment might inhibit the reactiveness of some of these chemicals with the soil. So yes, in the early hours when the sun is not fully up, and in the late evenings when the sun is really down and not so hot, is the best time. That's one. Two, in the early hours when there's dew and the leaves still have that moisture, their stomatas are still open. Anyone remember stomata in agricultural biology? In the leaves, they can absorb nutrients, they can absorb these chemicals, and the effect will be more than when the sun has dried out the moisture and everywhere is dry. So those are some factors to compare. That's why some farmers will go and spray herbicides and tell you the herbicide did not work, because the leaf is dry, and so the chemical could not stick.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to ask something regarding this selective herbicides. And
Okay.
what I realize is that some farmers used to practice mixed farming. And if you're, for instance, if you're applying a selective herbicide, this particular herbicide is targeted for a particular crop. So how do you think you can navigate and control other, weeds or crops when during this application? Or when you have different varieties of pests in your weeds on the farm.
I understand you. I understand you. These are some of the gap decisions we're talking about. By gap here, I mean good agricultural practice. As a farmer, you intend to cultivate maize. And while you are cultivating maize, you want to intersperse beans in between the maize. And you intend to use chemical and you intend to weed. You need to ask yourself, my intercropping, can it allow me to apply selective? Because this selective for maize will kill my beans. So what should I do? Remember the trimline cropping pattern we discussed yesterday? Can you remember? Where you
Vividly.
have two, sorry?
Pardon, sir?
Do you remember the tramline planting technique we discussed yesterday, where you have two lines of maize, one line of beans, two
Yes,
lines
yes.
of maize, one line of beans? You know, that approach, when you are talking of using selective, you know, it's easier for you to use selective in such a farm than when you lump the maize and the beans together. So those are some of the modern ways to farming to address some of these issues. Alternatively, as a farmer, if you have intercropped all your fields, you have to plan to weed manually, because if you use your selective, you are sure to lose one of the crops. So the tram line, if you've forgotten it, you have to make reference to the WhatsApp or look at the slides yesterday on the WhatsApp. When you have two lines of maize, and instead of intercropping the maize with the beans, you have one line of beans. You know, you can take your time to apply your selective in your maize line, skipping the beans. Maize line, skip the beans. When you are done, you can take your time to weed the beans separately. So some of these cultivation technologies are designed to make industrial farming easier, such as the application of selectives. So I hope this answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So we need to teach farmers that instead of mixing the whole field, we can partition it. You have a maize farm, you want to intercrop with beans or granite. Instead of put one beans, put granite. No, put a straight line of maize from beginning of the farm to the ending. Put another straight line. If you want, you can do 3 straight lines. Then in between the third and fourth line, you have one straight line of beans. You know, it's a lot of management becomes very easy. Chemical application become easy. Even application of fertilizer. Remember, your beans don't need a lot of nitrogen. So there won't be conflict of interest when you're applying your nitrogen to the maize. If it's mixed, the nitrogen will affect the beans. And you know, when you apply nitrogen, you need to know that to your beans, it will not naturally fix nitrogen. And because it doesn't do that, the yield will be less. So these are some of the things our farmers need to know. They bid to a lot of multi-cropping, your efficiency is less. But if you have 3 or 4 straight lines of maize, you can focus your nitrogen application to your maize and it will not affect your beans. If you want to apply your super to beans, fine, you focus it on the beans. If you want to weed, you can apply your selective to your maize, 2,4-D or any other thing. It doesn't affect the beans. You can take your time to use whichever selective you want to use for your beans or to manually weed. So these are some of the benefits, and these importantly are the key gap practices we need to look into. So let's keep going. If you have more questions, we can get into that. When spraying agrochemicals, ensure you wear your appropriate safety gear. We talked about this. At most, as a farmer, if you will not wear any gear, wear your face mask. And importantly, if you're wearing your face mask, it's not enough. You need to watch your field. See where the crops are tweeting to from wind. If the wind is blowing from the left, the shore will be moving to the right. If it's blowing from the right, the shore will be moving to the left. And you as a farmer can know the direction of your application. Because if you are applying your chemical against the wind will be blowing it into your face and you'll be inhaling it. You might not drop dead immediately in your farm, but I can guarantee you that chemical was not designed for you. It was designed for the crops. And because you are spraying yourself, whether you know it or not, there'll be consequences. The consequences. So it's our duty as climate smart agronomists to teach farmers how to stay alive longer because we need them to produce more food. We don't want them dead. You know, and if we as practitioners are not practicing these things and showing them, because it doesn't cost, how much is a face mask these days? It's cheap. What does it cost you to walk against the wind? To walk with the wind rather? Just knowledge. So these informations are there. So walk slowly and not too fast. Sometimes farmers will go and pay, I've seen this scenario in the field several times. Farmers will go and pay hands to apply herbicides for them because they are busy or there's so much work to do. And these people don't care about you. They just want to quickly exhaust the chemical so you can pay them and they'll go. So they come and they are just moving as if the devil is chasing them. In proper good agronomic practice of application of herbicides, use your hand pump. You know, your hand, the one you are pumping using your knapsack, should synchronize with your walking step, so that as you move one step, you pump. Of course, there's when you take a break because the pressure in the knapsack is high. But if you want to pump, you synchronize it with your hand. That is so that as you are moving, the application, the rate of herbicide application is the same with your walking step. So the speed with which a farmer walks should be same with the speed of pumping. Another simple technique that I also encourage farmers to use, you know, we all know twine rope, the one they use to sow sack. It's a farmer, it doesn't cost you anything to use it to demarcate your farm. Just do 2 lines where your hand will stretch in front of your leg as you apply your herbicide. And then you exhaust that 2 lines, you move the next rope to the next one. By the time you go around that partitioning, before you know, you have an excellent application. It didn't cost you anything. Tie the twine to a stick and peg it to the farm. So you just apply your application. Look at some of those practical protocols as you move. Before you walk from one end of the farm to the other, you would have known where you apply. Not the one we move thinking we are seeing everything, dropping sticks here and there. And then one day you come to the farm and realize you skipped some part. That will cost you more money, cost you more labor, and cost you more on the pest. So spraying is best early in the morning or in the evening. So stress this. By morning and evening, we're talking about relative to availability of the sun. Mind you, there are days you go to your farm in the afternoon and there's no sun. Such days you can apply. So don't just vaguely say it's morning or evening. What we are after is that let the sun not be too hot. In days when there are no sun at all because there's cloud cover, by 12, by 2, feel free to spray. So ensure chemicals can be used with other combinations. We talked about this. Remember, we're talking about integrated pest plant nutrient management. If the chemical you're using is not congruent or is not compatible with other products like the organic products, you need to space them. If not, you destroy what you've applied. Remember, it is possible to control weeds effectively without herbicides, but it's only possible with proper use of GAP, which is good agricultural practice or agronomic practice. So if you properly implement your GAP, for example, we're talking about scouting. If you have a small maize farm that is not so large, let's say maybe half a hectare or 1 hectare, or maybe several plots, you can pick weeds here and there, manually weed. You don't need to spend so much money on chemicals. Farmers need to know that. But these days, I'm sorry to use the word, a lot of farmers they choose the easier way out. And you need to weigh the options. Remember what climate smart agriculture is about, your ability to make smart decisions, no matter the cost. You're using a lot of chemicals in a farm, you can weed manually. On the long term, what will be the cost on your health? On the long term, what will be the cost on your soil? You need to look at those things. So understanding sustainable pre and post-harvest management. Can we see the picture on the screen?
Yes.
That's someone's sweat, someone's labor for 4, 5, 6 months, groundnut and maize, all going bad because of poor storage. After having suffered, this is no news to us. In Nigeria, a lot of farmers spend money. Nearly 50% of the food that will be produced this year will be lost to wastage, post-harvest wastage like this. Some of these challenges start from the field. What happened here is that this farmer probably did not dry his maize very well from the farm, or dried it very well from the farm and did not store it very well. And pests came, moisture came. Look at the nature of the crops. So another key aspect of good agronomic practice is that we must understand that it's not enough to grow this food. How we manage it after we've grown it is another thing. Or how we manage it as we're growing it and after we've grown it. Because some of these pests, they don't start from the storage. They start, the common pest, Calosobruchus maculatus, the common beans weevil. It doesn't affect beans from the storage. It's always from the farm. In fact, as farmers are beginning to warm up to harvest beans, these weevils have started laying their eggs on the beans already from the farm. And their sincere hope is that as soon as you take the beans to storage, they will start hatching and multiplying. So you see, key agronomic.
Sorry, sir, for the interruption. As you made mention earlier, you said maybe these pest insects lay their eggs since from the field. But sir, what if you use airtight storage where there is no ventilation? Can they survive?
No, we'll get to that. Excellent. That's some of the key practices that are recommended. So because the plant has insect have laid the seed, it doesn't guarantee egg, it doesn't guarantee that the egg will hatch or will survive. What guarantees the survival is all dependent on the farmer. What choices the farmer make is sure to survive and hatch in the careless farmer's hand. And so when you look at some of the points there, it says there is ample opportunity for food waste and contamination between field and final consumer. This greatly leads to pre- and post-harvest losses. It is our job as climate-smart agronomists to educate farmers on the relevant technologies and practices to address this. So use of PEDU, must have heard of this. I need response. Have we heard of this? PEDU improves crop storage. I have to show us a picture so that it makes more sense. That's what you were just talking about. Do we all know this bag?
Yes.
Everyone in the house knows it. Please speak up. I don't want to assume everybody knows it.
Which bags? Bill Gates, sir.
There's a bag on the screen.
On the screen now.
Yes, we call it Bill Gates, sir, in our area.
Bill Gates.
Yes, sir. We use it for airtight storage.
Yeah, I get why it's called Bill Gates. Bill Gates funded this research.
Okay,
and,
okay.
Made it available for African farmers. I see that he has renewed the grant, $10 million to ensure this bag gets to every farmer.
Wow.
Unfortunately, this bag, when it comes, farmers have to buy it. How much is it sold in your place?
I think that is around 700 or 600.
The bag is supposed to be.
As of
As of
last
last year.
Yes, yes. I don't know the actual price.
Expect to buy it more this year.
Okay, okay.
But it's a very, very important technology. Bill Gates or not, no problem. But the name, just so you know the name today, it's PEDU Improved Crop Storage Bag. PEDU is the university where it was designed. In short form, you can call it PICS bag. PICS. PICS is the abbreviation for PEDU Improved Crop Storage. It's a very simple and a vital technology designed for tight air storage. And if farmers can embrace these things to store their grains, the challenge with using a lot of chemicals to store beans would have been addressed, and other grains, store maize would have been addressed. And you don't need to store your maize here and then when it's time you carry it to sell in the bag. What is recommended is that you store your grains in it. It's for storage. When it's time to sell, you can move it to the commercial bags. We need to look at all these things and encourage farmers to use them. And the technology is simple. They contain about 2 or 3 bags, I think 3 to 4 bags. The first one is treated, it's a pure nylon. You tie it. The second one, you tie again, then the third is the final. So the parasites, if they are in the bags, they will die. If they are in the seeds, they will die of suffocation. And trying to get in, they can't go through the 3 bags because we've seen the beans weevil, Calosobruchus, we've seen it able to perforate these bags. So it's self-explanatory since we all know the PICS bags. And this storage method seeks to reduce post-harvest losses in grains. It's also highly reduced dependence on chemicals. There's a market in Jos, Katako market, where they sell grains. If you go there, what these chemical grain dealers do is that they pour the beans on the floor, apply raw or partially diluted otapia, sniper, and allow it to air a bit, then they pack it. When you confront them, they tell you it's for storage. They don't want to sell it immediately. But what's the guarantee that if somebody comes to the shop tomorrow to price it, they won't sell? This is how we've been poisoning ourselves and killing our populations with no consequences of justice. So farmers are encouraged to embrace these storage techniques. This is not the only available ones. There are more. In the north, I know we have our rumbu. Rumbu, if properly done, is effective. But if your rumbu every year, you have to check for leaks and cover it. Of course, there are also pedal storage drums, like the blue drums we know that has a snap cover. Little technologies. Then there is the impregnated aluminum phosphide, which is highly poisonous, but if properly used, can prevent storage destruction by pests. We need to look at these things. For me, it's not that these informations are not there. It's not that farmers have not been trained. It's just the discipline to embrace these things, or the little extra stress to ensure that once you bring your grains home, you properly store them away from rodents, from weevils, and all not. So as climate smart agronomics, our duty to continue to educate and demonstrate such method and technologies to farmers. We're almost rounding up. Another key topic I want us to discuss. Can we all see this picture on the screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. We can see the picture.
There are a lot of trees in this picture, but if we look closely, we will observe that the trees, their branches have been reduced so that the forest cover is not so much. The canopy cover of this tree forest have been greatly reduced. The reason why this has been done is so that sunlight can come underneath these big trees to coffee. There's a coffee on the lower regions are coffee trees. These are coffee trees all the way down there. Now, conventional agricultural method, what it encourages is that you are supposed to clear off all these big trees to make room for you to plant coffee. Supposed to clear off all these trees to make room for you to plant yam. Supposed to clear off all these trees to make room for you to plant maize. But the more environmental friendly approach is to prune these trees so that sunlight can come to your crops. As your crops grow, you can use them to replace the older trees. It's slow, but it's a more environmental smart way. It's a more climate smart way. So trees are essential to climate reforms. We cannot discuss climate smart farming. We cannot discuss climate reforms. We cannot discuss conservation agriculture without trees. Trees are the breath of life. It's our source of oxygen. Without them, there is no life on Earth. And so some of the challenges we are facing today in climate change that is being sung everywhere is the fact that we have less trees on Earth now than we had 100 years ago. And we will have less trees if we're not careful in the next 100 years than we currently have. That's a lot of crisis. So farmers play a very critical role in cutting down of trees, either for firewood or to clear canopies so they can farm. And so what this is basically recommending to us as climate smart agronomists or extension of field workers is to begin to educate farmers that they don't need to cut down all the trees in their farms so that sunlight will get to their crops. Yes, these maize cereal crops need sunlight, but you can prune the tree. In that way, you can have wood this year for your staking your crops, for fencing your animal pens, for firewood at home or charcoal. And next year, you will still have it because that tree is there to grow new branches after your harvest. But imagine a scenario where you cut down the entire tree. You harvest all the charcoal today. That tree took maybe 10, 50 years to grow, but you cut it down in a day, harvested all that it has. What happens tomorrow? There will be no trees left for you to harvest again. So these are the key decision makings. So let's look through this. And we have an interesting program that we are introducing to farmers to encourage them to grow trees in their farms, because we all know the challenge. Have we all heard of the Great Green Wall, Great Green Belts, implementation of the Great Sahara Green Wall? Have we heard of those things? The decision by the Nigerian and other African governments to grow and reforestate the north, because deforestation and desert encroachment is happening so fast. Predictions are the next 50 years, Lake Chad will be dried completely. Have we heard of these things?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But the headlines, sir.
Okay. So one of the reasons such programs are failing is because it's not enough for government to announce that they want to grow green walls, the Sahara, in the north. But it's enough for them to come up with programs that will encourage farmers to grow these trees. Because mind you, the farmers are the ones cutting down trees to farm. The same farmers are the ones to plant these trees. Same farmers are the ones to ensure these trees are taken care of so that they don't die. So trees are essential to climate reforms. They recycle nutrients, keeps the climate stable, and provide habitats for wildlife and biodiversity. It's important as climate smart agronomists that we understand these critical aspects of ecosystem preservation. This is so we can encourage proper and adequate landscape restoration and management. Farmers are key to successful implementation of environmental reclamation, environmental reforms, landscape restorations. Farmers are the key people. So if we can get farmers to plant more trees, if we can get farmers to farm in harmonious ways with trees in their fields, then it's a great success to this program, because we can't achieve it without farmers having trees in their fields. Agroforestry, which is entirely the collective term to describe what we've just been talking about, agro and forestry. How do we cohabit with forest? How do we farm in the forest? Forest here is not, when you think of forest, don't think of a thick wildlife full of trees and everywhere is thick. Forest is synonymous with trees. When you're talking forest, we're just talking trees. An avenue, a region that have trees. The forest cover could be thick or dense in different proportions. It doesn't necessarily mean don't let the whole forest we know not come to mind that is one dark, thick tree covered area. No, just a few trees here and there, to keep the elements together, to prevent weathering, to prevent erosion. The leaves will drop and decompose and give the soil manure. The trees will cast a shade that prevents the excessive scourge of the sun. These trees have benefits that we can continue to enjoy. The weather is calmer. They provide shades during windy storms from rain. A lot of benefits we can't exhaust. So agroforestry practices should be encouraged. Trees can be pruned instead of being cut down. We've talked about this. Alternative agroforestry fuel materials can be used. There are now briquettes. There are people now talking about how we can use rice chaff to make charcoal for cooking instead of cutting down trees. We explore all those options. There are now alternative fuel trees. Can we see the pictures to the far left?
Yes.
Okay. So if you look at the spacing in these trees, you realize that there is enough room for farmers to farm in between them. This picture is taken from a far location just to give us a landscape view. But when you go close, you realize that you have nearly half a plot in between these trees. So this is proper agroforestry. Farmers can grow trees, benefit from these trees, and still benefit from the space for their farming. This is a more, not just modern, but a more harmonious way to farm. And so there are a number of trees these days that have a lot of importance. There's a program we have launched. I have the topic there. Ecofarms Agroservices has avocado project. The Hass avocado is it's a very economic important tree. It's a normal avocado we know, but it has a longer shelf life. And so there's a demand for it in the international market. Another crop is macadamia. Don't know if you've heard of it. Of course, we know coffee, we know palms, we know fruit trees like oranges and mangoes and the likes. We know date palms in the north, Debino. It's a very important economic trees. We know the someone said dogoyaro is not same as neem, but neem is also another important tree in the north that is resilient to drought and can survive very well. But in nutshell, the important point why I brought this topic in here is to encourage us as climate smart agronomists and field agents to let farmers know that their economic trees, they can blend into their fields. Of course, a lot of farmers know the oranges, the mangoes, but the challenge they have is, if I grow these things, is there a market for them? And so we have a program where we're introducing this Hass avocado to farmers in Nigeria. We are introducing macadamia because these are crops with high international demand. And what we do essentially is give farmers a contract if they plant these trees in their farm in such a way that there's space for them to also continue to farm. Upon harvest of these fruits when they are mature, we come and buy it from them. And in other words, they are guaranteed the market. So because the farmers know there is a market for these trees, they take care of them. They don't cut them down anyhow. They see them as investments. And because they take care of them, these trees survive. These trees produce results. They produce fruits, and the economy is expanded. So the farmer who is embracing this technique to farming realize that he has yields from his grains, who his farms interspersed in between the field of trees, and he has equally yields from his either macadamia or avocado tree fruits. So you see, it's a dual profiting system. And he equally has access to firewood because every year after harvest, he will prune these avocado trees. He will prune these macadamia trees. He will prune these date palms, and he will profit from both of them, both his grains, both his crops. His animals too will profit. There is waste they can eat. These leaves that drop from these crops, they will fertilize the soil. And so you realize that it's a more profitable way to farm than clearing the entire field of all the trees, and then you only farm one crop. So an example of AgroFresh product project is what I have talked about. When we get to see and we talk more in a practical term, we look at these things. But at the end of the day, if Nigerian farmers can embrace these methods of farming, you know, they will have a more healthy field. They will have a more robust economic system because they will have tree fruits to harvest. They will have wood to neatly harvest for their domestic use, than going to the field to cut down everything. And then at the end of the day, even firewood is very expensive now. And then the entire environment is scorched. The entire environment is left exposed to all kind of erosion and damage by the wind. So these are some of the aggregation regions, for example, for the avocado at point of harvest, how farmers can properly harvest and process them. These farmers are trained. You don't just throw these crops to them and leave them there. Capacity building, like what we've been doing for the past days, are organized. Farmers are trained how to properly integrate these trees to their fields. When these trees are growing, how to manage them, the right inputs to use. When these fruits are ready, how to properly harvest them. You can see they are using crates. It's not the one we harvest, load them in sacks. Before we move them from one place to the other, they are spoiled. You can't export or sell them. No. Farmers are taught the proper way of managing it, how to harvest, how to clean, how to transport them so that everybody is comfortable. And at the end of the day, the farmer gains another extra profit from his fruit trees. So these are some projects we'll be working on, hopefully teaching farmers how not just to gain from their grains, from their tubers, from their vegetables, from their cattle, but also from integrating fruit trees to their fields and taking care of them. So we have come to the end of the training today. I'm available for questions, and the room is open for discussions. Please feel free to.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. My
welcome.
Question is regarding this agroforestry and the picture that you just presented before.
Okay.
I think, sir, if you look at the pattern of the trees, they were planted across a slopy hill or hilly area.
Yeah.
Sir, why do you think in a situation whereby if there is, for instance, if there is heavy rainfall, there won't be any runoff or the soil will be exposed to erosion? For instance, if you, for instance, till the soil or you just plow the land.
Yeah, I understand you. You know, one of the reasons this program was implemented in this hilly region was because the farmers there have been battling with erosion. And so their challenge was that how can we farm, all around us is hilly. How can we farm and not lose our soil? And you know, tree roots are natural erosion controllers. So we were thinking, how can we implement a strategy that will prevent the hills from being eroded, at the same time give farmers room to farm? So this is actually a solution to a problem. So the farmers now have these trees grown in the hills. The hills before used to be exposed. For lack of time, I would have shown you a picture of what that hill looked like 10 years ago. It looks like the conventional hills you see in the north. When rain falls, it washes down the laterite. Everywhere is scorched. You can't, if you plant there, rain washes it down. But now, if you look, the hill is stable. Everywhere is green. The roots have been able to galvanize the soil together and no more erosion. And in between those trees, these farmers now can farm. If you had zoomed through that picture, you see they have a lot of maize in between those avocados. And when it's maize season, they harvest. When it's avocado season, they harvest. So these farmers produce across the year. And because those trees produce shade, they don't need so much water to irrigate the farm because their fields is able to withstand a lot of moisture. And another important aspect is these farmers are encouraged to go into animal husbandry. Which is another aspect of this training we'll look at in the future. The reason they are going to animal husbandry is because the cows can feed on the leaves during dry season from these avocado trees, from the date palm leaves, from the macadamia leaves. And then in turn, the waste these cows produce can be used to manure these farms, manure these trees. And you see that there's a harmonious circle in their farming. And so such farm communities, this is an existing farm. God willing, someday we can visit and see how these things work. Such farms, they don't spend a lot of money on chemical fertilizers. They don't spend a lot of money on manure. Every farmer has a head or two of cows or goats or chicken, pen. They have enough manure to meet their needs. So these are key things we need to look at. Very key things we need to look at. And it's doable. People are doing it. That picture was taken from a farm, not invented. We too can do it. Start from somewhere.
Thank you very much, sir, for this, for your answer.
Welcome. Welcome. Please, it's time for questions. It's time for interactions. Today is the end of this training. If there's anything you didn't catch, if there's anything you want us to talk about again, you have the time. Please use it. If there's anything in your mind you want to talk about, this is the time.
Sir, thank you for your presentation.
Speak into the mic, sir. You're sounding far away.
For your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So my question is, apart from the agroforestry practice, there are some farmers that they complained because if they are applying agro into their forest, they feel some challenge, like they plant their maybe groundnut under the canopy of that tree. So the canopy of that tree will not allow the groundnut to yield like the
Very
way
well.
they mean.
Yes. This is a very important question. I like to thank you for it, because there's a reason why farmers are not embracing agroforestry, because like we said, canopy from trees this truly disturb productivity. One of the reasons we are adopting trees like macadamia, trees like Hass avocado, is because these trees are designed strictly for agroforestry. If you go back to those pictures, maybe on the slides, if I go back, you will see that these trees, if you go close to them, I didn't put such pictures in the slide, but I'll maybe drop it on the WhatsApp. If you go close to these trees, they are shrubs. They are not full-blown trees that cover everywhere. Like the Hass avocado, the tallest it can grow in 5 to 10 years, it's this average size of, what can I liken it to? Average size of maybe a small bitter leaf shrub. It doesn't grow so elaborate. And then when it comes to that elaborate size in 10 years' time, you prune it so that it begins to grow afresh. So these are some trainings, some knowledge transfer that we need to get to farmers. You don't want to embrace agroforestry. You don't want to go and plant mahogany in your farm because you want to embrace agroforestry. Mahogany is a very massive tree. You don't want to plant even the neem we're talking about. People have farms, neems in their farm. They have mangoes. They have the likes of thick malina. You have to prune them. If you don't want to go through the discipline of pruning them, then you have to pick choices of agroforestry trees that like the Hass avocado, the macadamia, that take so long before they become full trees. And while they are trees, you have to prune them. So I think these are some knowledge transfer we need to work on. You know, when farmers see these things working, embracing it becomes a lot more easier.
Okay.
I'm hoping to have a question from every member of this class today. So I have all the time. Nobody's asking questions. I'll wait.
Sir, sorry for disturbing you. I'm still back.
You're not. Go ahead.
Pertaining the dry season farming,
Yes.
there is some farmers that even yesterday evening they used to call me to tell them the variety of the rice that they have to start planting because they are ready to start their plantation. So for my own experience, I tell them I give them Faro 44 is the normal variety of rice that we are planted in our north side. So the other person he tell me that this is the only rice that he has since last 5 years back. So he wanted to change another variety of seed of his rice. I say this is the only one that I know, but let me contact my maybe boss so that he has some variety of rice available to him, and how do I access to that seed.
Okay. I'll speak with CMD concerning this and see what rice varieties they have in stock and they intend to introduce to farmers. But if it's just for information about rice varieties, there are quite a number of rice varieties. Yes, you mentioned the Faro series, 44, 45, and the likes. There is a rice variety called Gawal. I don't know if you've heard of it. Gawal. 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 Okay. It's a very modern and recent rice variety, and the yields are really high. The only challenge with the rice is the milling process is not the same process as our local rice. Now, I'm sure CMD, our partners in Gombe, will get back to you on these very questions some more. But generally, I just want to inform us. There are a lot of rice varieties. Farmers can, even this Faro series, he said he's been using 44, he said, or 45. So we need to look at his regions. Is he a highland area or a lowland area? We need to look at all those informations before we can recommend. But that gawal is an important rice. But farmers need to know that when you farm the gawal rice, your yields are more. Yields are nearly 10 tons per hectare. But when you are milling it, you don't mill it the local way. You know, our local rice milling, we use a lot of heat to parboil the rice before we process it and all that. If you want to mill gawal, you soak with warm water, not boiling it. If you boil it to turn to tuwo chinkapa.
Exactly, sir.
Yes, so gawal is a high yielding rice, but the milling protocol is a little bit different. So we need to teach farmers these things. The farming process is the same with farrow. Yield is high, but when it comes to milling, if you are not selling it as rice paddy, uh, you have to be careful. If it's for rice paddy, the industrial millers, they know. So they know how to adjust their boilers. But if you are milling it locally, if you go and overboil it, now pap, you go drink. Oh.
Exactly.
Okay, further questions, please.
Sir, I come again.
Please, fire on.
There is one farmer still that asks me, he says he's normally planting rice for more than 6 to 7 years, which
Okay.
is dry season farming.
Yes.
She says due to the scarcity of this situation that we are, he wanted to change from rice to either granite or what we call it guinea corn. Is it yalombello? I forget the
Sorghum.
name in English. Exactly, sir. And lettuce. So he just need advice from me. So did I just tell him to continue planting his this lettuce, cabbage, and this guinea corn, or I should maybe tell him to wait for a variety of the rice, or I should advise him to plant another thing so that he will become at least he enjoy what he planted.
Okay, the reason he's farming, he wants to change from farming rice. What is the problem again? Is he that he's facing some challenges with the field or the fertility or the yield, or what's the challenge? I need to know.
He says the space that he planted now, the main owner of the land, he collected almost half of the land. So the one that he is with him now is
How
only
much?
half 1 hectare. So, but
Okay,
before
so
he's planting almost 3 hectare or to 4 hectare.
okay. So I think the farmer needs to do a market survey and find out other crops that he can farm with his 1 hectare that have high economic value, so that he doesn't just go off farming cabbage and there's no market for cabbage or lettuce or something. I think let him do whatever crop he grows, I believe there is demand for, but he needs to do a market survey, and whatever crop he settles to farm, communicate with us and we can advise on the best varieties available in the market.
Okay, I understand.
I want us all in this house to know that I'm very accessible, particularly when it comes to agronomic advice. Beyond this training, um, please feel free to communicate either via the WhatsApp group or directly, and any challenges, we will have a proper channel to get it sorted.
The other question is maybe I will contact Mr. Salim because he is asking, the farmer asking me, as I introduce the Sacco company and the way how we maybe help him with a loan, I says if he apply the loan, you will get your loan from the date that you apply up to maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. He says this date or this time is so long for him to wait. So I don't know. I can maybe later I will contact Mr. Salim so that if there is some information to maybe I will let them know.
Yeah, I believe, I believe there will be a way around it. Do we end the meeting, or there's still more to talk about?
I believe, sir, as we go on, questions may be coming, and when it comes, we'll just contact you. So far, you're on WhatsApp.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody. It's been lovely meeting you all, and it's been a great time learning from each other. I hope to see us.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Are you on that platform, WhatsApp platform?
Yes, I'm there.
No.
I'm
Okay,
there as
so
Benjamin.
okay, so
Yes.
we can, it's allowed for us to drop anything that we want to ask here there.
Yes, you feel free to chat me there or directly. It's still fine. Anything that I can't deal with, I'll refer you to the right source. Anything I can, I'll freely answer. Yes.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
why they're here for us. They are here for us. So when we have any issues, we just channel it to them. They'll help us out. It's straightforward.
Please feel free. Feel free. Thank you again. Thank you. So remember, importantly, like I said, this meeting is recorded. I'll drop the links on WhatsApp there where you can have access to them as long as you want. On YouTube, you can rewatch them. We have a resource center on our website. You can have free access to those resource centers at any time to consult or to learn some more. Then we'll continue. This relationship is a long-lasting one. It's not just for 3 days, because you will need me, I will need you, and we'll talk. And I hope soon we will see for the practical aspect.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. So have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.